Hello and welcome to this episode of the Mary-Jess Meets podcast. Today I will be meeting Francesca Sola. She is a recording artist and classical singer from California. She trained as a protégé of world-renowned voice coach Seth Riggs, teacher of 120 Grammy Award winners, including Michael Jackson, Barbra Streisand and Josh Groban. In the opera world, she sang with the San Diego Opera Chorus for 5 seasons before touring in the musical Les Mis. She has sung internationally, with her favourite being the World's Fair in Milan. Her voice has been featured on various television shows on Fox, CBS and Dreamworks, and she has recorded a debut album called Run Free, which features the City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra. So let's meet on the Mary-Jess Meets podcast, Francesca Sola. Francesca Sola, thank you so much for coming and joining me on the Mary-Jess Meets podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me, because honestly, I feel like I know you already. I've seen all of the amazing posts that you've been posting up over the years. And so I'm so excited to now actually be able to talk to you. It's so funny in the classical crossover community. I feel like I know so many people that haven't actually been able to talk to you yet. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, it's almost surprising that we haven't ever met in person with you and so many other singers, because I know your music and I also know your personalities. This is a great community. And I love your music. I mean, I bought Shine and I listened to it so many times over the years. So I love your voice, and I feel like I'm just super excited to be talking to you.
Oh my gosh, that's so kind of you that you bought Shine. Thank you. I'm really grateful. That was lovely.
And I love this series as well. The Mary-Jess Meets. Like, I've watched quite a few of them, and again with like other artists that I also know, and it's amazing. There's something special about artist to artist and getting to talk music and performing and our other lives as well. And I think it's a great community.
Oh, it definitely is. It's such a great community, not only in the artists and the singers, but all of our supporters as well. And it's just so lovely to be able to have the time to go behind the scenes with these artists, because normally our supporters would only hear us, say, for a radio interview, for example, and then you've only got about 2 seconds to say everything, and you can't get into any stories or any behind the scenes. There's no time for that. So I love that that's what the podcast affords us.
Yeah, and you're such a wonderful host.
Well, you're very lovely. I try my best. Well, talking about the podcast, I feel like I should ask you my first question and we can get going. Normally with my guests, I like to start at the beginning. At the very beginning, and just ask you, why music? Why did you want to be a singer?
I was always singing and dancing. My grandfather was a violinist. He played in the USO orchestra. And so I have a very musical family, but neither of my parents are musicians, but they wanted my brother and I to learn an instrument. So they tried. My grandfather was a violinist, so they tried violin. I was not very good at it. They tried piano. I was always singing and dancing though, so they put me in ballet and thought, well, maybe she's a dancer. I was a terrible little ballerina. And then one day my mom heard that one of the ladies at her church taught voice lessons, and so she called her up and she said, my daughter's always singing. She said, well, bring her in. I was about 7, I think. And I just, I absolutely loved it. I just took to singing, and basically I've been doing it ever since. I was in my first musical, which was Annie, when I was 8 years old. And I loved doing theater, and it really wasn't something I knew that I wanted to do as a career until I was about 14, which I think is young for some people. And then I think in the musical world, though, a lot of people know so early. And I think when I was 14, I did my first professional production, which was Fiddler on the Roof. And that's when I started studying classical music as well. I took from a Greek teacher who taught, I was homeschooled growing up, so he taught like me and some of the other homeschool kids, like, opera arias and Italian music. So that was kind of my first step into it. But I've been a huge fan of classical music and especially crossover, like classical crossover, before I even knew it was a genre. From, I think when I was about 7, I saw Charlotte Church's Voice of an Angel special, and I was like, I don't know what she's doing, but I want to do that. Same with Sarah Brightman and, Josh Groban's early albums, and Andrea Bocelli, as well as the Three Tenors, and also Deanna Durbin. She was a actress. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she was an actress and a singer, and she was kind of a forerunner to the classical crossover genre. Sarah Brightman, Phantom of the Opera, had a huge impact on me as well. So I've sort of always been a huge classical crossover nerd. And I also love musical theater, and I also loved the more opera side of it too. So I sort of was able to like study both of those and meld them with my love of, classical crossover. And I think the thing that's so wonderful about this genre is that it spans such a wide range of music, and you really have a lot of freedom, which you don't necessarily have in the strictly operatic genre. That's a very specific type of music and style of singing. Whereas crossover, you can sing operatically and classically, but you can also sing musical theater songs. You can also sing pop songs, and it's just great. I'm a big fan.
Absolutely. And I know exactly what you mean about it being a big umbrella. That's the way I like to describe classical crossover. And you can put yourself underneath any arc of that umbrella and you'll fit in the genre. And that's something that I really love about it. There's so many things in the music industry where we're told we have to niche down, we have to pick a niche. Whereas actually, I love that you don't have to do that within classical crossover, because you can take inspiration from so many different areas. And it just means that you're more free to be creatively who you feel you need to be within that space. And to me, that always encourages a more authentic type of creativity. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah, so it's great that you're able to then take your love of musical theatre and classical stuff and put it together into classical crossover. Do you feel that that's what you did with your debut album? Was that really a chance to be able to explore that for yourself rather than within a role?
Definitely. I think it wasn't so much on the musical theater side as it was me as an artist, because I am a gigging singer, which the pandemic has not been great for, those of us who are doing gigs or like concerts. I know you had a lot of Christmas concerts that were canceled, as well as musical theater completely being shut down, at least in the United States. And it's only starting to come back again, although a lot of companies have closed. But as far as singing as an artist, if I'm singing for a wedding or doing musicals, I either have to sing what the clients are wanting me to sing, of course. But in musical theater, I'm also taking on a role being that character, being appropriate to the genre, if it's like Rodgers and Hammerstein or, whatever the genre within the musical theater world is. Whereas on my EP, I was able to truly was my voice. It was a mix of songs that I really did want to do. There was 2 covers and 3 original songs. So one of the songs was California Dreaming, which is a song I've always loved. I'm from California. And we sort of did a cinematic version of it that was all my own. And I really do love that. We also took the theme to Gone with the Wind, that da 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 da, and translated it into Italian and did that. So it was sort of, again, like that classical crossover mix of the mamas and the papas. And then I was also able to use my more operatic voice for Ne sogni miei, which is the Italian song. And then I did an original Spanish song, which is one of my favorites, songs on the EP. Again, a Spanish song that's like all mine on my EP.
That's wonderful. I absolutely love talking to fellow songwriters who are really advancing the genre by writing their own songs. But you say it's Spanish, so does that mean you're bilingual too?
Well, this actually, we found a song. I worked with a songwriter for that, and she wrote the Spanish song, and it was something that like I had some say in the production of it. And in the future, I also want to have more say in the songwriting. I probably had the most say in the more pop song, which was called Run Free. It was the title song. And that was written by the Spencer brothers who produced the album. So it was something where I was able to like have my say and I was like, I really want to have a Spanish song. I don't speak Spanish, but I do sing in Spanish. Italian's definitely my strongest language. I've been working on French. I just want to basically like be able to pronounce all the languages. And in classical singing, obviously Italian is probably the most heavily sung. At least for me, I sing a lot of Puccini. So Italian was my strongest, and then Spanish. And I've been working on French over the past year as well to improve French as well.
Gosh, that's brilliant. It takes so much work, but you're right. It's not only, it's very important to get the pronunciation right, obviously, but it's also so important to know exactly what you're singing so that you're able to put the emotion that it deserves into each word as you are portraying the character of the song. So I like to do the same thing. I'm not brilliant at French or German or Italian, but when I have to sing in those languages, I always look up exactly what the words mean so I know exactly what I'm singing.
And singing is all about communication. Yes, there's beautiful sound to it, but the most important thing, the thing that resonates with audiences is if you connect to the song and if you're communicating that to them. And I think that's what makes the best singers, is if you're able to obviously know what you're singing, which is a starting point, and be able to communicate that so that the audience can feel the emotions of the music. And one thing I did learn as well while recording my EP was that emotion is the most important thing to capture in recording. If you listen to a lot of recordings, it's not technically the most perfect take. It's the one that is the most emotional. And, you know, I'm so used to in classical music of singing it perfectly. And so with my producer, I'd be like, oh, that was a great take. And they're like, nah, it was all right. And then there would be one where I was very emotional, but it didn't sound the best. And I was like, oh, that needs to be thrown out. And they say, no, this is the one that has magic. So sometimes it's a little counterintuitive, especially for the classical world, to, you know, it's not, the most important thing in recording is not for it to be technically perfect, but for it to be the one with magic and emotion in it.
Yeah, you're completely right. And that is actually something that I've had to say to a few people. And it's because I think what it is the fact that we are performers, especially when we're writing our own material, but our voice is innately us. And so when we are putting something out to the world, it's a scary thing because you're worried about people passing judgment on you. And so I think a lot of singers try and get around that by making sure that their performance is as technically perfect as they can make it. They feel like they're protecting themselves from inevitable judgment. But you're completely right. As soon as you are completely technically perfect, so much emotion is taken away that then it's not actually perfect, if that makes sense, because really the perfection of music is the portrayal of emotions. That's how I see it anyway. So I wonder if making things technically perfect is a way of protecting ourselves when you put an piece of art out into the world. It's scary. So sometimes having that protection, I understand it.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, it's scary, it's vulnerable, it's your voice, which is a part of your body. And so if someone doesn't like what you're doing, and if you're truly yourself at the very core, it's much more vulnerable than having any sort of protection by not being genuine. But what people want to see is something that's genuinely you.
Yeah, that's right. And when we say like the voice is innately us, it's part of our bodies. It's not like when somebody goes, oh, I don't like the sound of that guitar, I'll get another one. You can't do that with the voice, can you?
There's no replacing this. It's going to stay there.
Exactly. But you had such amazing training with your voice. I mentioned in our introduction about Seth Riggs, who trained Michael Jackson, Barbra Streisand, Josh Groban, and so many others. Can you tell us more about working with him?
Sure. He's taught so many incredible people. He developed speech level singing. And he lived in Los Angeles. I'm from San Diego. So they're both in California, but it can be a 3-hour drive each way. And like I said, I was really fortunate to have had some great training from really great teachers from a pretty young age. And I was a little bit struggling with sometimes in schools with teachers, they will put you in a box that they think is right for you, either in the classical world and the musical theater world. And like I said, I loved classical crossover music. I loved how it spans the umbrella, as you said. And so I was always kind of wanting something a little bit different. Oh, that's the school bell. I live next door to a school, so the bell's going to go off a few times. And so obviously, like, I love Josh Groban. Obviously, I love Barbra Streisand. And we'd heard of this great teacher in Los Angeles. So we saved up. We got a lesson with him. I think I was 15, maybe 16. And drove up to Los Angeles, made my mom, and we took a voice lesson from him. And he's a fantastic teacher. And he also believed in me and offered me complimentary voice lessons because he saw good potential in me. So he was like, if you and your mom can drive up to LA, I will teach you. And so that was, so generous and kind of him, and was a great opportunity to teach, because he teaches obviously singers of all different styles, and it's more about healthy singing, singing that is really genuine to yourself. Like I said, it's speech level singing, so it's more about singing how you talk, whether it's in classical music, it's in pop music. And he was one of my really defining teachers. And then I had a great teacher in college as well, who helped me get my audition for San Diego Opera, which I did starting while I was still in college when I was 19. So I was a little baby in the opera chorus and got to get experience there, because San Diego Opera is an opera company I'd seen operas at when I got student tickets. Again, I was homeschooled, so we'd like get a car of students and go down to see the opera. And it was, amazing to actually be on that stage as well, performing. So again, kind of all those different genres were able to help me in a way stay true to myself, if that makes any sense, of all the different genres coming together into who I wanted to be as a solo artist.
Yeah, I want to ask you more about the San Diego Opera Chorus, but before I do, I just want to go back to Seth Riggs. I mean, how incredible that he offered you lessons for free because he believed in you. That's just completely amazing for a start. But then also, could you explain a bit more for our listeners as to how the speech aspect of the lessons work? Because I imagine some of them are thinking, well, if you're singing pop music, maybe I can see how that makes sense. But then if you're singing opera, a lot of people are used to opera voices sounding very different to speech voices. So could you explain for our listeners a bit more about how that works?
Yeah, it's a little bit about placing it. And I'm trying to think. He would have me do exercises where you focus on, instead of like loudness, of where it's resonating in your face and then also in your body as well. And I could show you some of the exercises, but it might scare our listeners. And it's more about just feeling where it is as opposed to manipulating, where, like, for classical music, a lot of times people say, raise the soft palate, make sure your tongue is relaxed, things like that. All of those are important, but it's more about like knowing where your sound is, like when you speak, like, for belting, it's very similar to like yelling, like healthy yelling, if that makes any sense. We can say, hey, you over there. But then when we sing, we want to do something different. But it's more about singing in that same resonance, if that makes any sense. So it's in classical music, it's very similar. You just add more, you're going to add in vibrato. Everyone has like more natural vibrato. You don't make it happen. It's just going to be whatever you allow to have happen of the like the wavering. And his wife had been a coloratura soprano, so I think he heard some of that. He'd lost his wife to cancer, so I think he heard. I was a coloratura soprano when I was doing more opera, and I think he just heard some potential in the classical, in the classical side of what I was doing. So I wish I could explain it better about like the speech level, but it's again about keeping that true resonance of your voice that you use when you're speaking, when you're also singing, as opposed to trying to make an artificial sound, because then you lose resonance and you lose volume as well.
Yeah, that's so sad to hear about his wife. Like, it's probably romantic of me to think that he maybe heard something of her voice in yours, which is why he wanted to really nurture your coloratura. But it sounds like that could possibly be it. But also with speech, that kind of method of singing, I think the way that I was described it before as well, just to add to what you've said, which is very informative, is that often lots of people can talk and talk and talk all day, but you get them to sing and they get tired very quickly. So if you place their singing voice in the same place as their speaking voice, theoretically, you should be able to then sing for longer periods of time because it's in its more natural place. And then when you say about resonators as well, there's so many resonators all over our body that we're using every single day, like our sinuses up here, for example, that we're just not aware of. So it's just utilizing the tools that you've got within our biology to then be able to sing as naturally as possible. I find things like this so fascinating, I've got to be honest. I absolutely love them. The first time I was shown what my voice looks like on a diagram by a Joe Still technique teacher, it just blew my mind. It was for the first time I could see my instrument. It was amazing.
Yeah, and also of being made aware, especially in classical music, where you feel it, like there's so much resonance and everyone's bodies are a little bit different. Your resonances are a little bit different. Mine is like right here. I can feel it right now. And when you sing, it vibrates. Or some people's resonances are really strong up here or even further back. So it's amazing in that on a cello, you can see where all the resonating areas are, but in your body, you can't see it in the same way.
Yeah, exactly. So it really helped me understand my instrument more because I could actually see it for the first time, which was really eye-opening. But yes, now we can go on, if that's okay. I want to bring you back to what you were saying about the San Diego Opera Chorus, because you had 5 seasons with them. So I'd really like to know more about your time with them and your experiences.
Yeah, I started like I said, when I was 19. And then when I moved up to Los Angeles, I couldn't work with them anymore because Los Angeles is a big city and it had a lot of opportunities for work and auditioning and singing. So it made the most sense, but I'm not that far away from my family, which is great. But San Diego Opera, I think it's the 8th largest opera company in the United States, even though San Diego is not a huge city. And they have a great opera program, and they used to have a student initiative that students could get tickets to go, almost like rush tickets for like $15-20, and then you could go down and see the dress rehearsal of the opera. And so as a young teenager, I was able to go down and see the opera. And of course, the sets are incredible. I think one of the first ones I saw was Die Fledermaus, and they had a 2-story house, and they keep the curtain open during intermission, and you can see them change the set. And it was just so incredible for me, who was doing musical theater, to see, you know, like opera stages and sets on a big scale. And so finally getting to work for them, I'd wanted to work for them for years. And it's an amazing community, and the rehearsal process is so fast. You know, you either have to be an incredible sight reader, where you can just, you know, open the book and sight sing like nobody's business in harmonies, or like me, I did some prep work where I made sure that I like had, you know, gone through the book, the music as beforehand, so that I came into rehearsal a little bit prepared, so that I could actually keep up with everyone, because it's so fast. But the music, I mean, it's just incredible. Obviously, it's not mic'd, and when you see the principal artists come in and do their thing, and you just hear how, again, like how the resonance works to sing in a huge house, to fill it up so that even the people in the, you know, the back of the nosebleeds can hear it just as well as the people in the front row, sometimes better, because of the way that the you know, reverberation is. It's even more beautiful higher up. And you also have to sing over an orchestra and over an entire chorus. And it's just an incredible, like, technical aspect to be able to see that. And I did they also do, you know, requiem sort of concert styles as well. And I did a few of those. So it was an incredible experience. I'm so glad I got to do it. I always wanted to study opera, even though I didn't necessarily want to become an opera singer and have that life. I wanted to be a solo artist and a recording artist, but I knew that singing classically and in opera was going to give me so much of the technical training that I needed to be able to be a gigging singer. Because when you're on tour, you know, when you're singing in like not the best like sound situations and things, having that like strong technical aspect of knowing your body, knowing your voice is really important. And I think some of the best, doesn't matter what genre you're singing in, some of the best pop rock singers have really strong techniques, because, you know, your body is so connected with your vocal health and how well you perform. You take it with you everywhere. So that's why I'm really glad I had the classical training. And, you know, also the training in opera with San Diego Opera, even though I always knew that I wanted to do recording, I wanted to do crossover music, because I like breaking the rules. I like singing what I want to sing.
Well, that's completely fair enough. You're able to do that as well. And I'm glad you said that, because I do the exact same thing. So we know we're definitely on the same page. But what was your favorite thing that you performed with them? You said about requiems as well as operas. Did you have a favorite?
My favorite was Turandot, the Puccini opera. Because the choristers, we sing off stage during Nessun Dorma, and it's this beautiful, quiet moment. I mean, all of the music in Turandot is gorgeous. It's Puccini, it's sweeping, it's beautiful, great melodies. There's so many beautiful arias from that. Plus like really fun costumes, and the set design was really interesting and like larger than life. At the end, we had these what we called Smurf costumes, where they were these big cobalt blue capes, and then we had these like blue, enormous blue hats. And so we were sort of the sea of like blue Smurfs, as we said. And it looked incredible from the audience. Again, larger than life, singing this gorgeous music. But there's this moment where, you know, the opera just gets really, really quiet. And it's just this tenor who goes out on stage. He has this spotlight, and he sings this pretty short, gorgeous aria, Nessun Dorma, which everyone recognizes. And like I said, the women's chorus, we're in the back because we sing like the echoes during it. And it was just such a beautiful moment to get to like experience that even from the wings.
That must have been so special. It's definitely the aria that people are waiting for with that one. They're like, we're ready for Nessun Dorma. So then to have it sound so perfectly staged, it sounds beautiful. So I can see why that would be one of your favorites. And I feel like I want to see a picture of the Smurf outfits, because that's so good.
Looking very
Yeah, well, it's not just opera that you've been involved in. You were in Les Mis, and I've been really looking forward to asking you about that. How was it going from being with the San Diego Opera Chorus to then going to full-on musical theatre in Les Mis? What was that like?
It was great, but it was a challenge. So I did a regional tour of Les Miserables, which is a musical that I have loved since I was a preteen. So I've always wanted to do it. And the first leg of the tour, I actually was Eponine understudy and then like the factory girl. So I did, tons of ensemble stuff. And then for the second leg of the tour, the girl playing Eponine was doing something else. So I ended up being cast as Eponine for it. And Eponine is not like Cosette or Fantine, where it's more on the classical side. It's definitely more on the belting side, which is a big challenge for me to do. And so in that way, it's a fantastic part dramatically. I mean, who doesn't love to get to die on stage? But it was a challenge, and it was amazing to be able to sing that role. I love it. I don't think I'll ever do Eponine again, but I would love to play some different roles in Les Mis, because it's one of my favorite musicals, and it just has gorgeous music. So switching over, honestly, I love it. You do have to condition your voice if you're doing something classical. One of the first roles that I did when I moved to Los Angeles was Cunegonda in Candide, and it has a lot of coloratura elements to it, especially in Glitter and Be Gay. So I had to like condition my voice just for that. Kind of like with an athlete, where if they know they're doing a marathon versus a sprint or something, you're going to condition your body differently. So that's something that I've gotten really good at, being versatile. I know you're a very versatile singer as well. So it takes, for me, jumping back, like I'll do, before the pandemic, I was doing Man of La Mancha, and then I was also doing singing gigs, which I do, several days a week. And so I would go from singing like, kind of jazz or musical theater or classical music in a happy hour where I kind of sing whatever I want, to then doing Man of La Mancha and then doing this specific role. So you just have to make sure to, protect my voice, make sure that I, steam, drink my tea, get enough sleep, all that sort of thing, of switching over genres. But classical music is definitely the one where I have to make sure, like, okay, what am I singing? When am I singing this? I need to get it in my body, get it in my voice. Full-time opera singers will take, a good 3 months only singing that role to condition something in their voice. So that's, the most like extreme version, but singers have to do it in musical theater as well. You sort of have to condition your voice to sing the role that you're going to do, to have the stamina.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that you touched upon there was getting enough sleep, making sure you're hydrated. There's all these kinds of things that people might not necessarily associate with singing. So for example, one thing that I did when I was recording my debut album was I gave up dairy completely for 6 months so that my voice was as clear as possible. But there's so many other things, like not really having orange juice or anything that's very acidic, and like so many different things that you've got to think about as a classical singer. Sometimes it does make me feel like I should have gone into rock, and then I could have had whatever I wanted and drank as many whiskies as I wanted, and that'd still be fine. But as classical singers, we need to take a little bit more care. So is there anything in particular that you do that you feel works for your voice when you're conditioning for a role?
I think, and like you said, I love dairy, so I would be so sad giving it up, because it doesn't affect me in the same way that it affects you. And again, all singers' bodies are different, which is what's so fascinating about everyone has slightly different rituals. One size doesn't fit all. We have different body chemistries. And for me, dairy doesn't affect my voice in a negative way, but alcohol, anything drying, caffeine really does. So that's something that I'm like, I really want a glass of wine, but I have a performance tomorrow. I can have a glass of wine after I sing, that kind of thing. So, I think avoiding anything that like will dry me out. I also, sleep is a really big, it really affects my voice. If I haven't gotten enough sleep, I can tell the whole next day when I'm singing. Talking too much. I can probably sing longer than I can talk, if that makes any sense. My voice will feel more tired especially if it's a loud environment like a restaurant or a cafe or something. I tend to overphonate and talk too loud, and then I can hear it in my singing voice. It's just a little more tired. What else do I do? I also make sure to steam. I have a humidifier on at night. I live in California, so it's pretty dry here, kind of deserty. So I make sure that I have a humidifier on every night, or else I can feel the difference. And then I also have like a portable steamer, which if I'm doing a lot of performances, if I'm doing 8-show weeks, I, have to have that with me. And it helps me feel refreshed, ready for the performance. So that's kind of the main things for me, is things that don't dry me out, and humidifying, as well as staying hydrated, of course.
Yeah, a lot of those are the same for me, but dairy is definitely my thing. So if if I've got a performance, I won't eat the chocolate bar until after the performance. So the chocolate bar is my equivalent to your glass of wine there. The chocolate bar afterwards. But it gives me something to look forward to when I'm done. It's like my treat when I'm done, which is nice. Well, I've got some more questions for you, but they're not from me. They are from Mary-Jess Club members. So to give you a bit of background to our lovely listeners, the Mary-Jess Club is my version of Patreon. So it is a monthly subscriber club with over 14 exclusive benefits, and my guests, on my podcast, my wonderful Mary-Jess Club subscribers get to ask my guests questions. So they submit their questions before the recordings. So if you'd like to find out more about the Mary-Jess Club, you can go down into the description, and then you will be able to get your questions in to my future guests. So we have some questions from the Mary-Jess Club, if you're happy for me to dive in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what is your favorite aria or song?
Or song? Can I say one of each?
I think we should say one of each, because we both said how versatile we like to be. Let's do one of each.
One of my favorite songs, oh man, then I would break it down into genre, but I'll just stick with a song. Stranger in Paradise from Kismet. I have a really lovely like orchestral version, and I love singing it. It's just such a beautiful piece. The melody, which is actually from an opera, it's from, I think, Prince Igor, that was later recycled and English lyrics were put to it for the musical Kismet. But I love singing Stranger in Paradise. It feels ethereal. I feel like tropical breezes on me when I sing it. I love it. My favorite aria would probably have to be Nessun Dorma. I know it's a tenor aria, but I love singing it. And I think people just have such a strong emotional response to it. And that's what I love. I mean, I love singing, but probably 50% of my love of being a performer is being able to make the audience members feel something. If someone comes up after a performance and they're crying, or they said, oh, my mother used to sing that song and it just brought me back, or I used to dance to this with my husband, things like that are so special. And so I think because people just have such a deep connection to Nessun Dorma, and it has such a beautiful melody to it, I'd have to say that's my favorite. Plus I love how dramatic it is.
Those are both incredible choices. So I completely agree with your Nessun Dorma. I sing that as well. I don't care that it's normally sung by a tenor. I'm like, well, I want to sing that. So I've done that with a few things, but it's so much fun. And it's a way of, as you say, getting the audience to feel something because they love that song so much. So fantastic choices. I agree with you. They're both wonderful. So are you ready for our next question from the Mary-Jess Club? Yes. Okay. So this one lovely person is asking, what was it like performing in the World's Fair in Milan?
It was fantastic. I was able to spend a couple days in Rome before, and then the World's Fair happened in Milan. And I'm half Dutch. My mother was born in the Netherlands. So I got to perform on the Dutch Pavilion for the closing of it. So, different countries have different like either buildings or displays. Sound strange because they're like the World's Fair is enormous. And the theme of that year was food sustainability. And so there was a lot of different types of like countries, like answers to the increase in the population and how we're going to feed everyone. So it was a really, really neat expo. It's the World's Fair. They just call it the World Expo now. And so that was really incredible to be able to experience it and to perform. I mean, the audience was amazing. Like I said, I got to perform on the Dutch Pavilion, which was this beautiful stage. And it was very much, it was great because I felt a connection to like my mother and the country that she's from. So it was a great experience. And the only thing that I was sad about was it happened right before the holidays in August, where they shut everything down. So other than the World Expo, nothing, like everything was closed in Milan. So I didn't get to see much outside of it, but I did get to experience the expo, which was incredible. So I love traveling. I love getting to sing. I love getting to travel for singing. I know you got to sing in Taiwan, I think, which must have been an incredible experience. And it's just, there's something special about getting to travel for your job, for music.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And the World's Fair in Milan sounds like an incredible experience. I genuinely feel so lucky when I am hired to go and perform somewhere different, somewhere new, somewhere exotic. So it doesn't really matter where it is. I'm just grateful to be able to travel the world and have those experiences because of my voice. So I know what you mean. It feels like such a gift when we are invited to do things like that. Talking about being invited to sing for something, the next question from the Mary-Jess Club is very good. They said, how did you get to sing for Dreamworks? I mean, goodness me, getting invited to sing for Dreamworks sounds amazing. Please tell us more about that.
I honestly don't remember how they got in contact with me, but it was for a DreamWorks show, which is based on a movie which you may have heard of called Puss in Boots. So I got to sing for an episode of it. The composer had Sean Patterson, who composed. Have you heard the song "Everything Is Awesome" from the Lego Movie?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Which was Oscar nominated. He wrote for Puss in Boots, and so he had an episode where there is a singing pig. So there's a momster who comes to the village. Now stay with me, I know. Who comes to the village, and one of the pigs goes up and sings like beautiful opera on a balcony and tames the monster, and then everyone's happy. So I got to be a singing pig for Dreamworks. I think his name was Toby, and the episode is on Netflix. I don't know if it's on the UK Netflix, but it's pretty hilarious. Actually, that reminds me, I need to post about it. So that was my shining moment as Toby, the opera singing pig.
That is so cool. Have you got a link to it? Like, can I link it in the description? Because I want to see that.
I'll see if I can find it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much to the Mary-Jess Club members for those amazing questions, and thank you so much for indulging us and answering them so brilliantly. To our lovely listeners, if you'd like to find out more about the Mary-Jess Club and all of the exclusive benefits, then there is a link in the description, so you can go and check that out. So Francesca, thank you so much for answering those questions. I've just got one more that I'd really like to ask you, and that of course is, what is next? What is next in the pipeline?
Oh my goodness. I have some recording plans. And right now, to be honest, I'm really lucky to be doing a lot of performing. I had one yesterday. I'm leaving for one in a few hours. So just to be filling up my calendar with gigs again, because everything closed. I thankfully had just finished up a show before lockdown happened last March, but theaters, are slowly starting up again. And as far as concerts, I was able to do one that was Andrew Lloyd Webber. That was my first like public concert, which was so fun. It was the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber. And that I was so nervous about it beforehand because I hadn't sung in public for audiences for a while. And of course it came back right away, all the nerves that I had about like, I don't know if I'm a performer anymore. When the audience is there, there's just a magic, and with the other performers. And then I actually did get to have my first traveling gig, which was only to Las Vegas, but I got booked to sing for Bobby Flay. He's a celebrity chef here in the United States, and he was opening a new restaurant in Caesar's Palace. So I got to sing for that a few weeks ago, which was so fun. And other than my like regular happy hours and my singing gigs, I know things are coming down the pipeline as far as live performances, but honestly, just kind of working on building up everything that I lost over the last year of not having live performances. I know you've spoken to so many singers who have all, been in the same boat. So it's been a hard time for the arts and for performers in general, but kudos to you. You've been doing such amazing work. And even with the Mary-Jess Club, you made your own Patreon, which I'm just so impressed by. You're incredible, and always coming up with new ideas. And this is a side tangent, but you said something in one of your previous Mary-Jess Meets, and you just said, what's the harm? Just go for it. And I feel like that's your mantra of just go for it, try it, see if it works. And I have so much fear in my performing of what if it doesn't work? What if it's not perfect? That it holds me back a lot. And so I really, really admire how you go for things and how you take chances, and it really pays off for you. So that's a completely unrelated thought, but I take so much inspiration from you, Mary-Jess.
Wow, I'm genuinely so touched by that. That's so lovely of you to say that. And yeah, I guess that is a bit of a recurring theme now throughout the podcast, mainly because of the two mottos that I was given as a child that just blessed me throughout my life. So making sure that you've always got more than one string to your bow, and then making the most of every single opportunity available to you as well. So those were the mottos that my mum and my grandma blessed me with. And they have just changed my life as I continue trying to make my way in this industry, as we all are. And so if I can pass on those mottos to other people, then I'm more than happy to do that. You've probably heard them quite a few times in this podcast during the various episodes. But I also really liked what Victoria Tocker said. She said, you've got to be like water and constantly flow around and evolve around all the obstacles that are in your way. And I loved that metaphor for it, because as creatives, we have had to really be like water this past couple of years and flow around all of these obstacles just to try and stay afloat. And she also has a wonderful saying as well that I do like to use now, thank you, Victoria, which is, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And I love that. That gives me confidence as well. So I love how we can get confidence from each other within this genre and within this community.
Absolutely. And the thing that I love is so many of the songbirds and people like you are so supportive of other artists, and you're not only making a way for yourself, but you're also sharing information. And all the other singers have been so open with our struggles, and it just helps me not feel alone. Like, oh, right, the business side is hard for everyone. Like, all artists struggle with how much like admin work we have to do, and how sometimes we feel like we're just constantly, like the water metaphor is amazing. Like, you can't let anything stop you. If there's a rock, water just flows around it and finds another way. And as artists, we have to do that even before the past year and a half, even before the pandemic. We're having to, change and be adaptable. And like you said, a different string to your bow. I've worked so many other like survival jobs or performance adjacent jobs just to like be able to be a performer as well. And I think everyone has to do that, or find different performing venues, or make new performing venues, or make the Mary-Jess Club so that you have like your patrons, because you have very loyal fans who love you and want to support you, and you've made a way for that to be possible.
What you said there as well about getting jobs on the side, and having all the different things, the different strings to your bow, really what you're doing is you're giving yourself a gift there, because you're giving yourself opportunities and options for when others are potentially taken away due to whatever it is, like COVID or something. And that's another reason why I'm so grateful for the Mary-Jess Club, because I really feel like they have, since opening the club, they've been there, they've had my back, and I can discuss these opportunities and ideas with them so openly. And they are there with me from the very beginning, the very conception of these ideas, all the way through to completion. And so it just feels like I've got my own little my own little amazing space of support on the internet in the club. It's just my favorite place to go, because I can discuss these ideas with them, and I know that I've got their support all the way through, because we're on that journey together. And that's also how I feel about the Songbirds and the classical crossover community. We're all on that journey together, especially through everything that we've had to deal with over the past couple of years now, or year and a half. And I know that I've been talking to a lot of the Songbirds that say, they talk about the amount of pressure that they feel having to get other things in the pipeline, having to get another string to their bow. And I've tried to look at it in a different way to try and help my own mental health, really, because we can feel a lot of pressure, and it can feel very unnerving not knowing where your next paycheck's coming from. So instead of feeling that pressure, I try my best to see it as an opportunity to be creative, because I don't get to be creative all that often with music, because it costs so much to make. There's so much admin that we've got to do, and there's so many other things that often get in the way of that creativity. So if I can channel my creativity into those new opportunities, then it's a way of making me feel more excited about them, rather than going, holy moly, what am I going to do next? Panic stations. You know, it kind of turns the same situation into a nicer prospect, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Francesca, honestly, oh, sorry, say that again.
Oh, I was just saying it's a great mindset, because it's for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's easy to be resourceful in that, like, I can repair my own clothes, and if something breaks, like, I'll learn how to fix it, things like that you kind of have to be resourceful in. But I don't think of being resourceful in my career and my music in the same way. So it's good to be reminded of that, that just creativity and resourcefulness will help your career.
Oh yeah, definitely. It definitely will. I feel like it's helped mine so much, because you have to constantly innovate within the space that we're in. I mean, everything's changing constantly. Social media is constantly developing. We've had the introduction of streaming services, and all that kind of thing. So you constantly have to adapt and change and pivot to suit that circumstance, and so it can feel like you're not keeping your head above water. It can feel like that. So it's just a case of trying to flip that on its head and go, no, hang on, I don't need to feel overwhelmed. I can feel like this is an opportunity for creativity, and it just helps me have a more positive outlook on the way the industry is going.
Yeah, I feel like this is, so again, talking about the like working different jobs. When I lived in San Diego, I worked at Legoland as a performer there, and our microphones were set up where if you spoke over someone else, the microphones like wouldn't be able to pick it up. So we had to make sure that the other person wasn't making any noise. They'd finish their line, and our director would say, like, you can't talk over each other. It's the way that the sound's set up. So I had practice with that, and we're doing it over Zoom right now. Try not to talk over each other.
Yeah, that nicely explains the pauses that we're leaving because of the delay, because you're so far away from England, but I'm so glad that the technology has stayed with us. We did have a few technical glitches in the beginning, which is normal when technology's involved with me somehow. So I'm so glad that we were able to make this work. And Francesca, I'm so grateful for you coming and sharing so much of your time with us. So thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest here on the Mary-Jess Meets podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, and you were so generous with your time and with interviewing me. I had such a good time, so thank you.
Well, if our lovely listeners want to find out more about you, we're going to make sure that we've got all of your social media links in the description so that they can check out all the things that you're up to next and keep up to date with everything. So I'll make sure that I'm following you on the links as well, because I want to be kept up to date with your new recordings and your performances. It sounds so exciting. And we'll have to have you back on the Mary-Jess Meets podcast again soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary-Jess.
Thank you, Francesca. Bye.